Hello, everyone. Welcome to Enjoy the Book of Life and Happy New Year, starting our third year with the podcast. If you haven't looked back at our older episodes, you can find them on our website, enjoythebookoflife.com, or on YouTube. In YouTube, they're divided up based on what kind of episode they are. But on the website, you're able to kind of scroll through from beginning to end quite easily. Today, I want to talk about our new series. This year, I'm going to focus just when I do episodes by myself on leading a study. So not necessarily your personal Bible study, but when you're having a Bible study with other people. Now, this could be just you and one other person. You meet up regularly, have a coffee, and talk through what you've been studying, or it could be a much more formal time where you and a group are meeting, you're going through a book all together, maybe you're the leader of that study. And so different things to consider when leading a Bible study. Before we jump into that, in the mail, I got some of the hardcover journals. Last time when I made my episode, I didn't have these yet. I was so excited. I wanted to promote them. And so really like the quality of the hardcover journals that you can find, again, on our website. You can buy them off of Amazon, but it's easier to find them on enjoythebookoflife.com and then follow the link from there. These are the ones that I've been using since the new year. Again, if you get one of these journals, the Manna for the Hungry is a daily devotional. It'll take you right through to the end of the year. It starts off with how to use it, then your prayer list, which is a good exercise to take your time, fill out, devote some thought, and then each day. So you put the dates up here, what you hoping to memorize that week, and then what you've been reading, a meditative thought, and then what from your giant prayer list, what you're going to focus in on that day. So being able to fill these out, very encouraging so far. I do this in the morning, first thing, and then I do my Bible study each evening. Now, one thing that I've been enjoying with this is each study is 3 pages long. So what I would do, so for example, I'm going through Matthew chapter 7 right now, and I spent 3 days in the first half of the chapter and 3 days in the second half. And what I do is I do a page a day. So it has the keywords, questions, and text connections. So I did all that on Monday. And then Tuesday, I did my application, my text structure, and my study summary. And then on Wednesday, I did my summary picture, title, and shareable takeaway. And then yesterday, I started the second half of the chapter, and I did the first page. So then today, I will do my applications, text structure, and study summary for the second half of Matthew 7. And that's been helpful for me to know I've got this one page and I work through it. And then that way, I'm not just reading and meditating on the scripture every single day, but I am also studying the Bible every single day as well, getting a little bit more in depth. So again, I'm using the paperback copy. It's what I received first and started using. I also wanted to see how well it held up, so I thought I'd test that out through using it every day for the whole year. You also have the hardcover. And then, like I mentioned in the episode before, there is a free PDF online. If you just want to print off pages as you go, put them in a binder, that's fine. I know with journals, people are particular. And so if you want, before you spend some money and buy these, I wish I could just give them away for free. However, I'm doing it through Amazon, and they don't like that as an option. And so if you go and you want to see, do I actually like this format? Is it helpful? Just download a few pages of it off of the website, enjoythebookoflife.com. Try it out for a week or two, and if you like it, then you can feel free to buy the journal. Now, one critique that came in, and I was in full agreement, was that there is no bookmark, and that is helpful. Again, it was a formatting limitation when it came to publishing these using Amazon. And so what I've done is on the website as well, enjoythebookoflife.com, I have created some bookmarks. Now, I just printed this one off. As you can see, it's a free PDF. This is giant. So this is if you print it all to one page. You can also end up printing them, you know, 6 to a page, 4 to a page, however large you want. This size is when you print it 6 to a page, so a lot smaller. One to a page, 6 to a page. You can go in the middle with 4 to a page. But what it has, I kept this one, printed this one so that everyone could see this. On one side, it has reading tips. So this making sure you pray before you read, choose a wise location for your reading time, use strategies. Don't just try to read words and say, check, I'm done, but try to really engage your mind. You can summarize. That's one part of the journal, right? You write your meditation down for the day. Do it every day. Look for thoughts. Don't just, don't just read words, but actually find that meditation and then share what you read with other people. Very helpful in remembering what it was you enjoyed that morning. Try to say, who can I share this with? It could be a friend that you text, or, you know, even sharing it on your social media, something that you enjoyed. On the back is a list of all the books of the Bible. And so one thing I like about this is one of the reading methods. If you're reading through the Bible, if you don't want to read it in order. Now, one of the reasons why you can do this, or you might not want to do this, is because there are certain portions of the Bible that seem repetitive. There are some portions where that one style is or that one genre of literature is quite extensive. So, for example, the Psalms or Isaiah, Jeremiah, it's quite a repetitive style. And so sometimes once you get through Isaiah, instead of jumping into the next book, say, I'm going to go to the New Testament, read some epistles. And then this way, as you read through it, you can just cross it off when you're done with it. And then it just keeps track for you. So if I've read through Genesis, and instead of jumping right into Exodus, I'm going to go up and I'm going to read Ecclesiastes or something like that. And then I can cross one off, cross the other off, and it'll just kind of keep track for me. So that way you can print off several of these, and each time you read through the Bible, you just cross them off and keep track of it. So anyway, these are for free download on the Enjoy the Book of Life website. Again, depending on the size you want, you can just scale it when you print it. And I would just print it on some cardstock. It would be a little bit more durable than on just regular printer paper. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into leading a study. So the first thing when we start discussing this and say, okay, what do I want out of my study? Okay, kind of a broader idea. I think there are certain pitfalls, common mistakes when it comes to Bible study. And this is something that I realized. I went to a lot of Bible studies growing up, a lot of different styles. There's a lot of good things we can learn from going to other people's studies, how they lead it. I learned a lot about discussion techniques, about engaging the learner from a lot of knowledgeable and skilled brothers and sisters going to all these different Bible studies. And so there are three that I want to focus on today, three strengths of a Bible study. And if you can develop these into your time studying, and again, this could just be you and someone meeting at a coffee shop, just chatting about what you've been studying. But in a larger context as well, more formal context, if you can develop these things into your Bible study, I think it's a real asset. The first one is differentiation. Okay, now differentiation is just a big word that means that the content fits each individual. Okay, and the common issue that I tend to see is distinctive Bible studies. So you'll say, okay, this is an intense Bible study. Okay, this is for advanced learners. Okay, or this is a new believers Bible study, right? And so what happens is Bible studies kind of take on its own persona and say, okay, this is maybe not for you. This is for new believers, or maybe this one's not for you. It's a little advanced, right? And so I see that as a pitfall with certain studies, and instead to be able to have a single study that no matter what level you are, so to speak, you can profit from attending and from going to this study. So usually you see them divided up by age, by knowledge level, interest even, right? This Bible study is for this certain interest level. And there are, again, places for those sorts of things. You're not going to cover certain Bible stories in your Sunday school class. And so there are certain things to talk about at different age appropriate times. There are times to focus in on a specific topic that's going to interest other people other than others. But I think in a broader sense, the more differentiated we can make our Bible studies, the better. So again, with this, when we make your average Bible study distinctive, what happens is either you create a barrier or it leads to poor instruction. So if, let's say, just using an example, we say this is an advanced Bible study, right? An intensive Bible study is more so how it's usually communicated. So this one's intensive. So either I create a barrier to where I discourage people from coming. They say, "Ooh, I'm not really into the intense category yet. I wouldn't consider myself advanced." So right there, I've created a barrier to where this person has decided not to come to a Bible study because they don't believe that they belong there. The other issue that tends to happen is if they do end up coming, they may not get a lot out of it because it's not geared towards them whatsoever. There's no differentiation, and it doesn't reach that particular student. So I would propose a solution towards this would be open-endedness in the Bible study format. So what you have in education is you tend to have things that are closed-ended and things that are open-ended. And open-ended Bible study is more authentic. Okay, so if I open up my Bible and I'm going to study it, there is no magical list of questions that appears next to what I'm studying, right? There's no list of questions that says who wrote this, and who was this written to, and what does he mean when he uses this word in this verse. Okay, that doesn't appear. Instead, the reader is left to whatever skills they have, okay, when it comes to studying the Bible. So I would propose in your time of study to have these skills, these activities that allow, no matter where the student is, whether advanced or a beginner, it would develop them and help them really get their hands into the word, the scriptures, so that they can develop not just as a studier, but develop in their understanding of the passage. So I think it is still good to have that structure. You do need a way to guide, to see progress through the chapter, but you want room for them to move. I find a list of questions is a little too restrictive, right? I have to answer this question, and that question may be right or wrong. And so if I can have it where it's open-ended, some sort of activity, this would allow for that open-endedness. So, for example, a few examples here. Questions. If I say, find 5 or more questions that you have about this section. Okay. Now, that's very open-ended. My questions are going to be different from your questions. And that's okay. If someone has been in the Word for a lot of their life, their questions might be more particular than someone who has never read this passage before. They might say, well, who wrote this? Well, why did they write this? Why did they say this? And why not that? And so their questions are going to be differentiated based on them individually. Another activity would to be find connections. How does this text connect to other texts in the Bible? A good example of this was when we were having the Bible study here, and we had 2 individuals, one person who had been a student of the Word for years. Their very first time at the study, they made a connection from John to the book of Isaiah. They said, look at this. Aren't these great, right? This great connection. Another gal, she was at the study and she needed the table of contents in the front of her Bible to find the book of John. Okay, so very new beginner, hardly read the Bible, let alone studied the Bible, yet she still found connections with what we had studied the previous week. So she said, here it is. He said this, last week he said this, look at that, a connection. Okay, so they both completed the same exact activity, only they had very different kinds of connections based on what they were able to do. And so this allows for this open-endedness. If you're interested in the other activities that we did, all of them would be open-ended activities. You can look all the way back to episodes 1 and 2, where Christian and I break down all 4 of the activities that we typically did in a Bible study. The second thing that I think is a big strength is for student-centered learning. Okay, the common issue that I think arises in these Bible studies, especially group Bible studies, but it can happen one-on-one as well, is you end up with a talking head, right? There's it's one person sitting there, usually the leader, and they are just talking. And they talk all about the study, and they explain every issue, and they walk through it. And it's what we call direct instruction. So this one, to make a Bible study student-centered, is very, very difficult for a lot of teachers, for them to take a step back and to put all the emphasis on the students and not so much on the teachers. Now, again, direct instruction is valuable. Just like I think close-ended questions are good. They can get you thinking. So just because I'm promoting this one, I'm not saying there isn't room for other things. Direct instruction where one person is talking and they're teaching directly from me to you. I think that's very handy in a lot of situations. If I want to give you an overview of the book of Romans, the best way to do that is direct instruction, not to do these activities. It would take a really long time for the students to work themselves through the book and then to find the overarching ideas. But if I just want to give you an overview, the easiest way is for me to just tell you that direct instruction. So question and answer is the same way. If I ask you a question, the easiest, best way for you to communicate your answer is to simply tell me. So there are lots of different reasons to do direct instruction. However, I don't think direct instruction is the best form for Bible study because, again, it's not very authentic. I don't open my Bible and all of a sudden, the first thing I shouldn't do is to directly go to commentaries, read what someone else says about it, and say, oh, that's what it means, the end, right? And that be what I call Bible study, instead of actually spending time with the Word of God, with the Spirit of God teaching me, so that I actually learn what he has in his word for me. So it's a skill. And the best way to learn a skill is for you to get your hands in it, for the students to actually learn it. If you went to a mechanic school and all they did was lecture, you're not going to turn out the best mechanics. The best mechanics in these vocational schools, they're actually there pulling the engines apart, figuring out what the problems are, and putting those engines back together. They're going to need help. They're going to need guidance. They need teachers, but not lecturers. And so when it comes to Bible study is a skill. And so the students actually are going to need their hands in the text, working with it. So some benefits. It when the Bible study is student-centered, they're actually the ones having the conversations. They're the ones going through these activities, asking the questions, making the connections, making the observations about what words they see repeated and what words they see as important, and making applications to their own life, these sorts of things, summarizing the text themselves. When they're the ones doing that, it communicates that Bible study is for everyone. Okay. It doesn't create that divide where it's like, okay, he's the Bible teacher, we're the people over here that listen. Okay. Bible studies for everyone, and everyone can learn, everyone can find these amazing truths and see the connections and find answers to their questions. Everyone can do that. And that's what it promotes. They're going to remember more. Whenever you find the connection, whenever you ask the question and see the answer, that's when you remember. And that's what really lights that fire and gets you excited about Bible study. And this, again, doesn't restrict the teacher. The teacher can guide them. The teacher should be guiding them, saying, oh, did you notice this word? You said that here. Did you see it over in this verse? How do those connect? And ask questions, guide them, point them, but not to actually feed it to them. They won't discover everything. Okay. And this is a hard one again for teachers when you're like, okay, we're going through this chapter. It's one of my favorite. It's got all these nice, neat points. They're not going to find all of those. And again, you might be drawing on decades of information in your favorite chapter. They're not going to find that all in an hour or two of studying the text. And that's okay. It's okay that they don't discover everything. Sometimes if you just sat there and you talked through everything you wanted to talk about, they're not going to remember all of that anyway. And so instead, let them dig through it, guide them. Don't necessarily guide them to specific points, but just help them do their activity. So, for example, if I'm looking on someone's sheet and I see that they're looking for words and making all these observations, and I say, "Ooh, you don't have any underlines or circles or anything in verses 14 through 17. Why is that? Like, go just zoom into those verses and look at those." I'm just helping them with their activity. All right. I might say, you don't have any questions about this, or what are some applications? How does this really apply to you today? Asking those questions, promoting those activities, that's really the role of the teacher here, to guide them. Sometimes they have questions. I try to shrink back from answering them directly, and we'll talk about that with our next point. Number 3 is to have it be discussion oriented. So far, it needs to be differentiated. It needs to be student-centered learning, and then it needs to be discussion oriented. So with this, the common issue is priming that pump, getting the conversation going. And here's the issue. People say, okay, well, if I'm the teacher, if I'm the leader, and I'm not the talking head, right? I'm not just telling them everything that I know or walking through question 1, 2, 3, 4, right? How is authentic, real conversation actually going to happen? How is that going to happen? Well, you have to have that hands-on study, that authentic study of the Word of God, where they're actually walking through it themselves. And then what they're doing is they're developing things to talk about. So the way we formatted it is the first section of the Bible study, everyone was doing their own study. They were in groups, small groups. You don't want too big of groups because then the certain people will just let other people do the study. And you want small groups where everyone's kind of having to do the study, 3 or 4 people. And then once they've done their study, we get together and we discuss what everyone learned. And what's interesting is that the things that this group over here learned and the things that this group over here learned, they're different. They went down different paths. And so we're discussing, and everyone has observations that they found. Everyone has questions from the text. Everyone has connections. Everyone has a summary. Everyone has all those because I watched them all do it. I was guiding them and saying, okay, now move to this activity. Now do this activity. And they all completed all of the activities. So now when it's time to prime the pump, I say, okay, what were some questions that y'all had? And I know everyone's got questions, and I'll just sit there. Sometimes the silence is uncomfortable, but I know everyone has questions. And so if I need to, I can say, hey, what was one of your questions? Because I know they had it. I saw them. Now, one of the nice things, and I'll talk more about this later, is I would go around and I'd actually look at the people's work. So I would go around and I'd compliment them. I'd say, ooh, that's a good question. Make sure you share that with everyone. Okay. So then when we're sitting in the group and I'd say, who has a question? And no one's talking, I say, oh, so-and-so, you had a great question. What was that question? And then they'll ask that question, right? So I already kind of prompted them that this is going to happen, right? I want you to share this. This is a good one. Everyone's going to like it, right? I already kind of gave my little seal of approval. Well, then I'm not the one asking the question. I'm not the one talking. I just say, hey, ask that question. What do y'all think, right? And having everyone else do it. So some people like to have priming the pump with homework. Now, I actually avoided this. I don't like giving homework with Bible studies because if you do it, that's great. If you don't do it, that becomes a deterrent, right? Coming time to go to the Bible study, oh no, I didn't do it. I might jot a few answers down. Well, those I did it in a few minutes in the car ride over there. It's not going to be really worth sharing because I'm hardly thinking about it. But sometimes it's like I'm looking at the blank sheet and saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't go this week. And so I didn't want to give any sort of deterrent to the people coming to the Bible study. So I really didn't like doing that. Close-ended questions, like, okay, so what was Isaac's father's name? Okay, Abraham, right? There's no discussion there. It's just an answer, right? You just write down what you wrote, even if it's a more complex question than that. How does the typology of Abraham on Mount Moriah connect with that of Calvary, right? And it's a more complex question. Just because it's a more complex question doesn't mean it generates discussion. And so, but if I did an authentic study and said, ooh, I noticed these words were important, these were repeated, this led to this question. What do y'all think about that? Or here's this connection. How did you make that connection? What text were you thinking of? I can keep priming because I know not only did they come up with these things, but that they went through a process, that they spent time on this because we would spend an hour studying before we would have our hour-long conversation about the text. They spent time doing this and thinking through it and working as a group, discussing it already. And so they would chime in and talk about what they thought and how it all connected. So open-ended activities really promote that discussion because, again, it's individualized. This one person who has more of an elementary connection, they can still talk about it because they discovered it. They found this connection. They saw it. Now, one of the other things I really like about this is when someone who we might, again, I don't like these terms, but just for clarity, is someone we might say is more advanced, someone who's studied the Bible more. when they show something that they discovered, first of all, they're excited about it, right? Because the Spirit showed them this truth. But then that also teaches the ones who are newer to Bible study. Say, oh, I didn't realize that. That is really cool. But then also, when it comes to questions, the people who are asking questions that are newer to the Bible study, I wouldn't just go ahead and answer them, even though I'm the leader of the Bible study. They ask a question, and I look around and I say, what do y'all think? And then someone else at the study who says, oh, well, if you look down in verse 4, you can see who the they is that he's talking to. It says right there. And they're like, oh, yeah, they're good. That clears it up. And so I wouldn't, again, it's student centered that when they ask these questions, now if I think the question isn't being answered, I'll come in and I'll assist, or I'll say, oh, look at this verse over here, or we can see a helpful parable or link over in this chapter or something like that. So that I will do that. But first, I always open it up to the floor. I said, y'all studied this passage. What did y'all see? How did it connect? What's the answer to their question? And so it allows, when especially those more elementary questions come in, then that the more experienced studiers are able to answer those questions. So it creates a bridge between those groups rather than divide them and say this study is for this group and this study is for that group. Now, just talking through these three, I kind of got into a little bit of dynamics, answering questions, how different things works. But I'm going to create whole episodes on those, how to lead discussion, how to avoid issues, and what happens when issues do arise, tense issues, questions you don't have the answers to, how to work through all that, how to go around and monitor and other things that I was doing. I wasn't just walking around. How to guide them and help them and keep from too many rabbit trails and detours. So we're going to have episodes on all those. Really looking forward to that. We really haven't been able to focus on that in the past 2 years. So I think it will be a beneficial time as we think about not just, again, sometimes Bible study, we always think of this formal type of format. But I think it just you and someone else meeting, it can be someone who's decades of Bible study, and you can still have a profitable time sharing with them and them sharing with you. It could be a good friend. It could be your spouse that you're working through a study with, sharing about your time in the Word. So I pray that these little tips and ideas will really help as we seek to enjoy the book of life.